to our special coverage, which is to do with rains in Bengaluru. My guests continue to be with us on the broadcast. Sandeep Anuradhan, who is the convener of Citizens Agenda for Bengaluru, is on the broadcast with me. Sandeep, I'm sorry, I had to just cut out of that conversation that we were having. But essentially, we're talking about who's to blame, and this political blame game that's also kind of started, which has been an unending story when it comes to the civic apathy in Bangalore. Do you think people in Bengaluru need this? I think it's, more things need to be done on ground rather than just this political bickering.
Yes. So what the government is doing now is purely whitewash, and I'll tell you why. On June 13th, the Met Office had issued a warning that in September there would be above normal rains. This is a good 1.5 months ago, and I think almost 2 months ago. So the government should have declared a disaster then, 2 months back, and they should have done what they're doing now then. Why did they wait for all the damage to happen? So one, the government is apathetic. They are not interested in the city. And for this, there are two reasons. One is the city doesn't have a city government. As you know, the elections have not been held.
Yes.
But that is just part of the story. The city has not, the state government has not empowered local government for the longest time ever. It's not just this government, all the previous governments. The 74th Amendment was passed in 1992. We should have had a Metropolitan Planning Committee for planning the city. We don't have it. We should have had area planning committees and ward planning committees, which would have prevented a lot of the nonsense that has happened over the last 3-4 decades, because the state government has allowed unplanned growth to happen in the city. So we basically, except for the old part of Bangalore, if you see all the new parts, what we call the IT hub today, it's basically a shanty town without any planning. It's continuous construction. All the waterways have been encroached, lakes have been encroached. If you see, the government itself has encroached on most of it. So basically, it's unscientific planning, unscientific growth, and the root of all this is because we don't have the 74th Amendment empowered. The 74th Amendment is a part of our constitution. I think every one of you should be talking about this. Right. Every city is supposed to implement the 74th Amendment. And every state government continues to violate it. They don't do it. See, the 73rd Amendment, which was Panchayati Raj, every government has almost, implemented. But the 74th Amendment, which sets up city governments. See, the problem is the state government doesn't take interest in a city. All it tries to do is make some money out of it. They don't govern it because they have bigger problems.
Right.
Till we have city governments in every city, this problem will continue in all of the cities in India, not just Bangalore.
Right. So the very important point that you're making. I'll take this across to Mr. B.S. Arun, senior journalist, who's also joining me on the broadcast. But Mr. Arun, let me first take this to one of our callers who is joining us on the broadcast also. Seema joins us from Bengaluru. Seema, do you agree with what is just being discussed, that governance, the state government looking at civic issues is also the key problem because of which Bengaluru is suffering at the moment, purely because the government in the state doesn't really have the time to actually look at this hyper-local issue when it comes to the civic planning?
Good afternoon. The problem is basically because of unplanned growth is one. And point number two is this is something that has happened over the decades. No one anticipated rains to be this harsh this time. The civic authorities to move as fast as you want them to move is definitely not happening. It's not just in Bengaluru. It's in any other city also. It's the same issue. But something needs to be planned, put in place. There should be a citizen forum to look into the planning and the so-called Raja Kaluves they're talking about. And unplanned growth is a must.
Right. Right, Seema. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. A very important input that Seema is making. Mr. Arun, do you agree? Even the citizens are mouthing the same sentiment. There has to be a committee that actually looks at these issues which are to do with the city so that these things do not continue. But they have been, not for years, but for decades now.
Well, it's both yes and no. We had such committees earlier. If I remember properly, during S.M. Krishna's time as Chief Minister, the industry captains, especially the IT captains like Kiran Majumdar and others, there was a committee which was set up to recommend, what are the issues that need to be done, that need to be set right, and all that. And they did some good work. But that was that. And after that, we did have committees, but then there was not much of work which went through these committees. Mr. Sandeep also mentioned about the city, the government, the city corporation.
Yeah.
Again, the issue here is, yes, we had a city, corporation elected representatives until 2 years ago, but how far, were they sort of responsible or helped the people in improving the conditions? It has always been the nexus of the officials, the city corporators, the MLAs, which brought the city to this stage today. So I'm not sure how much help these councillors would have done in ameliorating the problems of the people. The very fact that we are seeing this today, people are in water and not in their homes, is a result of this. The encroached lands, be it on the lake beds or the illegal sites. It's these people who have done this.
Absolutely.
And there had been
Sandeep,
no
I'd let you
overseeing.
take this question of kickbacks and also the fact of this the politician corporator nexus, which continues to, bring the city to where it is at the moment. But let me also take in a caller who's joined us at the moment. Saubhagya has joined us from Bengaluru. Yes, Saubhagya, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. I've been
Good afternoon.
seeing this type of debates from past almost 15 days. But we have, as a residents of Bangalore, have one question. See, this planning which has been done is now done by the government, and now the blame game has already started. But even now, currently, there are so many, every day we see so many ads over the papers and everything telling that lake view, front view, back view, all views, okay? Instead of giving so much license to the builders, there is everybody knows there's a nexus going on, okay? So instead of that, at least now the government has to stop all this and take the ownership of, take the concerned people who have given this permission for building these flats, all that, right? And now I'm seeing that BBMP in a local TV channel, I'm seeing that BBMP has not given the pathway for going this underground water at all. So who is responsible for this? And an young girl died. See, everywhere there is the civic apathy. Now, who owns the responsibility? Who owns the responsibility? Government will tell the city is growing. Yes, city is growing. Everywhere it is growing. It's not that we have seen rains every time.
Absolutely.
But why this type of apathy? This is really
Absolutely. Why this civic apathy is the big question that people of Bengaluru continue to ask. Saubhagya, I'd like to thank you, and I'll also thank all my guests for joining me on the broadcast. An important question, because there are problems at many levels. It is not just civic responsibility. It is the government in the state that needs to answer. It is the mayoral elections which are due for more than 2 years now. Earlier, pandemic was a problem. Now, the matter is still sub judice because of the delimitation of wards. So the matter is stuck within the Supreme Court. That answer also needs to be actually dealt with. There have to be cooperators that need to be assigned so that things can be looked at a deeper level in Bengaluru. This is a mess. It needs to be cleared out, and the government and the civic bodies need to answer. We leave it at that. Slipping into some breaking news that we are getting on the broadcast.